This is Speak Earth. I'm Case Bradford. Thank you for tuning in to this episode with Alec Jaffe, the founder of Alec's Ice Cream, the world's only certified regenerative ice cream. Really enjoyed learning from Alec about his journey, how he started making ice cream way back when he was a kid, how he fell in love with sustainable agriculture, and how he grew to marry his two passions together in forming Alec's Ice Cream, sourcing milk, cream, and other ingredients from regenerative farms and creating delicious ice cream as well. It's a platform for creating a cooler world with better farming, better food. Really enjoyed this conversation. Appreciate you tuning in. If you are a new listener, welcome. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to contribute to Peak Earth, I came up with a few ideas. One is to leave a 5-star review on the Apple app or the Spotify app. Those help Peak Earth reach more listeners, which is always cool. 2, you could share an episode across social media. Could be an Instagram story, could be a post on your website. You could create an entirely new website dedicated to all your thoughts while you listen to these podcast episodes. 3, what you could do is become a cheesemonger, get a cheese cave, make some delicious cheese, raw cheese, maybe from goats or sheep or cow or all 3. And then you could call it Peak Earth Cheese. And people say, what is the inspiration behind the name of your cheese? And you'd say, well, there's this podcast I listen to. And then that would, eventually people would find this podcast through that. So you don't have to do any of those things. Really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you. And I hope you enjoy this episode with Alec Jaffe. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Stoked to be with you. I've really enjoyed consuming your ice cream ever since I first found out about it. It blew my mind for reasons that we'll discuss, but I'm really excited to drop into a conversation with you and learn more about your story, your ice cream, and everything that you're up to.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
So I have this right here, the mint chocolate chip. I'll show it on the camera. Splendid ice cream. Absolutely delightful. How did you come up with this flavor? Because the mint is powerful and the chocolate chips are really delicious.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, mint chocolate chip, it's been my favorite ice cream flavor since I was a little kid. I know mint chocolate chip can be a polarizing ice cream flavor, but I've always loved it. And we spent a lot of time trying to create what we felt was the perfect mint chip. And so we used peppermint oil, which is not alcohol based. And why we did that is because we put a lot of cream into our ice cream, and that fat can sometimes mask flavor. And so what we found is using alcohol-based mint extracts, it was giving a really strong alcohol aftertaste because we were just putting so much in there. So we switched to a fat-based oil, which delivers a really nice, clean, pure peppermint flavor. And then our chocolate chips, we found those from a supplier, and they make these chips that are just kind of melt in your mouth and they don't get too hard and crunchy in the ice cream. And we fell in love with them the second we tried them, and it was just a no-brainer to use those.
Yeah, these chocolate chips in there are really some of the best chocolate chips I've ever had in any ice cream. They're like perfect.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Sometimes after a production run, we're cleaning up and you just grab a handful and take a bite because they're really good.
When did you first start making ice cream?
So started making ice cream in elementary school. We had a class project. I think it was 5th grade. We had to make something at home and bring it into class to present however we made whatever we wanted to make. And I love ice cream. I grew up eating ice cream and always loved it. And so I was like, I'm going to teach myself how to make it. And so I got a little Cuisinart ice cream maker and a recipe book to teach myself how to do a French custard style ice cream base, which just means it has a lot of eggs in it, and you're basically making a custard that you then turn into ice cream. And I made peppermint stick. That was my first flavor that I ever made. And then just enjoyed it. And, it's something that's fun to do at home, and especially can get really creative and experimental with flavors.
I agree. It's really fun to do it at home. I've started at some point in the last 3 years. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and it just had so much fun. It just being able to make it, and it's a lot more labor intensive than buying at the store. It makes you realize like it's it's not just like
anything that you pull off the shelf. And if you really look in the history of ice cream, it was food for kings that was not available to most people for a long time, and until we figured out the machinery to make it widely available, and not to mention the ingredients that are coming from all over the world. So it really is one of the most amazing and magic foods on earth, and we're so blessed to be able to have access to such amazing food.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't think about it because it's such a ubiquitous. Everyone has ice cream, and it seems like such a simple food. But it really is this unique thing where you're taking a liquid ice cream mixture, whipping air into it, almost like a gas, and then freezing it into a solid. And so it's going through all the different forms and states that something can be in. And it creates for a lot of interesting challenges when you're making it, but also some really unique and fun things that you can do with the product.
So how did you go from being that young, making your first ice cream at home, to starting an ice cream company?
Yeah. So I also grew up around family members very involved in sustainable agriculture and food systems and agroecology. They have a small dry farmed organic vineyard in Central California. And so just going to their vineyard every year, we did family reunions for Thanksgiving, and hearing about sustainable farming and water tables and soil health and learning about these topics from a young age, it made an impact on me. And fast forward after college, I was working at a startup that was shutting down, and I was thinking about what I wanted to do as I was soon to be out of a job, and started experimenting with ice cream recipes at home for friends and family, and working on some other ideas. And people really loved what I was making. And so I was like, all right, let's try to turn this into a business. Started going out to co-packers, other ice cream factories, and seeing if they would make the ice cream for me. And ran into a lot of issues, particularly around dairy sourcing, and wanting to be really controlled about who we're sourcing our dairy from and the farming standards that they have. And so I was kind of stuck, and eventually got really lucky and found this shut down ice cream factory in Sonoma County, California. Company was closing down and selling off all their assets. So we were able to get this installed ice cream factory like that's just sitting there. And it was too small for a big company to move into, but also it's big enough that, like, okay, you really have to want to build a national brand and like start using this factory and have it make sense to be in it. So this weird kind of tweener factory that worked perfectly for us. And so we moved into that factory January of 2020, 2 months before the world changed with pandemic and everything. And so we went through a lot of interesting challenges in the first couple of years of our business, just like everyone else did at that time. And then ended up launching products in stores at like very end of 2020, essentially early 2021.
Wow. So a fairly fast, considering all the challenges that you went through, it seemed like that seems like a fairly streamlined, like, from A to B movement. It was that, you must have gone through a lot of challenges at the time. What were some of the biggest challenges that come to mind when you reflect back on that period of time getting it going?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it sounds really nice when I'm just telling the story. It's like, oh, we did this, then we did that. But when you're in it, it definitely feels a lot messier. We lost our original dairy supplier. They shut down during the pandemic. They were a local farm that we were working with that was organic and pasture raised. And we were like, okay, well, who's going to be able to sell us organic dairy and cream and with all these sustainability attributes that we're really looking for, and have a mission around? And so that was really hard to find because, again, just like the factory, we were this brand and company that, we didn't need full tanker loads. So we couldn't like come in and be like, hey, we need this impressive, number and really command supply. But we also couldn't go to the grocery store and pick up, a few quarts and start making stuff for like a little ice cream stand. We had to run a factory. And so again, we're in this tweener phase of like, well, how can we find someone that meets our standards and also can deliver what we need? And that's how we ended up finding Alexander Family Farm, who's been our dairy supplier ever since. And so I think for us, it's always been taking these challenges and these obstacles that we get hit with and that we've been getting hit with since, we started the business at the same time that COVID pandemic started. And so we've been facing ups and downs every day and every year. But taking that and finding it to make it an advantage. I mean, the same way as finding a shutdown ice cream, finding this factory and it giving us the advantage to really control our dairy supply and do some unique things with the product. But I mean, I think losing our supplier for our key ingredient was one of the biggest obstacles.
That must have been a big blow at the time, and
yes,
major kudos to you for continuing to go on through all that and face these challenges and put forth something that brings a lot of joy to people. And I am aware of Alexander Family Farms. They're America's first certified regenerative dairy. They're up in northwest part of California, if I'm not mistaken. I've never been, but I've loved to. And for folks listening, their dairy is available almost nationwide. I've seen it in Miami. I've seen it in Los Angeles. I've seen it in Manchester, New Hampshire, like all across America from this one regenerative dairy. They've got amazing kefir, cream, milk, and all kinds of dairy products, including Alec's regenerative organic ice cream. Have you been to that farm?
I have. Yeah. So when we were discussing working with them, of course, I wanted to go visit the farm and, see what they were doing. And it really is the idealized version of a dairy farm. It was perfect. The grass this was at the end of August in California at a time when we were at a pretty serious drought, and they're irrigating their fields less, and their grass was perfectly green. The cows were out on pasture and just had a lot of room to roam. Of course, they were doing the rotational grazing with regenerative systems. And it was just like, if I was a dairy cow, I'd want to be on that pasture. So yeah, it was really cool. And then Blake and Stephanie Alexander and their whole family are amazing. And it's been an awesome partnership working with them.
Glorious. I like to imagine a world where that's where all the milk comes from, farms like that across America, but I guess we got to take it one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think for us, that's a big thing of showing, and I know for them too, but like for us, showing the being a platform for regenerative agriculture in a really fun way and highlighting all the different ingredients and products and crops that regenerative agriculture can touch. And if we can introduce that concept through ice creams as such a fun, simple product, like that's an amazing way for us to kind of help educate and grow the regenerative movement.
It really is. And it's such an amazing way to do it. It sounds like you've taken two of your core loves and passions growing up, sustainable agriculture and ice cream, and fusing them together into like this really amazing purpose in life.
Yeah, it's really fun to be able to, just everything about my job. Like, of course, starting a company, running a company, there are a lot of challenges, and it definitely is not easy. But it's fun when I get to go into the office on a Monday morning and we're tasting different cookie samples of like which recipe do we like better, and it's like, okay, like this is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's definitely beats a lot of the other employment opportunities out there.
It does, yeah.
So I've made a lot of posts online and gotten a lot of attention for making the claim that ice cream is a health food, and I stand by it. Although I get a lot of crazy looks for when I tell people this, especially when they see that I'm in good shape and I stand for what I believe in. But ice cream, when it's made properly, there's milk, there's cream, there's egg yolks, and there's sugar. Those foods are incredibly nutrient dense and healthy. I think You probably can't quite make the claim. I think you've got to stay away from making certain claims, but I can make these claims.
Yeah.
And when you have something like what you've created, the milk and the cream are from a regenerative farm where the cows are grazing grass, that's creating incredibly nutrient dense milk and cream that is healthful and nourishing to the human body, mind, and egg yolks as a binder. A lot of commercial ice creams out there do not use egg yolks anymore. They'll use a variety of different substances to thicken it because it's cheaper. And the fact that you use egg yolks is a huge plus and adds a ton of nutrient density. So I say in full confidence that your ice cream is a health food, and there's of course some sugar in there, and that's what makes it ice cream, and that's what makes it delightful. But those core ingredients are nourishing, nutrient dense foods.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing because exactly what you said. I mean, like, and that's something that we're trying to bring to the ice cream category. There's barely even just any organic ice creams, let alone regenerative. We're the only verified, certified regenerative organic ice cream out in the world, and so when you look at the nutritional density of milk that's coming from regenerative farms, it is higher. There's a lot of research that's going to start coming out that's showing that this milk is more nutrient dense. It has healthier fats and micronutrients and all sorts of good stuff. So, you can indulge in ice cream. And for me, I'm a former college athlete. Nutrition is super important to me, but ice cream was always my, treat of choice. And it doesn't have to be this like cheat meal I'm going to indulge and feel bad about it. Something you can feel good about. I mean, I wouldn't, obviously within reason and portion control and all of that, but it's something that you can feel good about indulging in.
I agree, and I do feel good after eating it, as opposed to some other ice creams where I don't feel as good because they're probably using dairy from a factory farm and not using egg yolks, and that is going to be more inflammatory than the high quality ingredients that you're using.
Yeah, and then also the A2 dairy that we use. So we use A2 dairy, which Alexander Farm produces, and that's been really amazing. So for those who may not know, A2 dairy, A2 is a beta casein protein in milk, found in all mammals' milk, but cows, as we started breeding them for more industrial purposes, there was a genetic mutation where they started producing an A1 beta casein protein instead. And that A1 protein has a different structure and digests differently in people's bodies. And so we've had so many people come up and say, I haven't been able to eat ice cream in years. I had one person email us, they said that they had a really serious surgery where they had to remove, I think it was like their gallbladder or something, and they couldn't eat ice cream because it was a trigger for them, and they had our ice cream and they feel totally fine. And it's like, if I can bring, we can bring ice cream back for someone like that, a really simple but delicious and enjoyable moment. That to me is super cool.
That is absolutely amazing. Must be great to read that, knowing that you were able to bring that person the joy of enjoying ice cream again after not being able to do it for a while.
Yeah, totally.
On that topic, I know a few people have mentioned that they have difficulty digesting things like guar gum, and that I know you include in very small amounts in the ice cream. Would you mind sharing a little bit about why that's in there and how you perceive that as an ingredient?
Yeah, totally. So we use less than 0.1% of organic guar and locust bean gum, and these are plant-based fibers. And so we feel good about why we use them for a couple of reasons. One, the gums get hydrated in the ice cream. So a lot of times when people talk about gums, they are not hydrated ingredients, or there are these weird kind of like artificial things that really react negatively to you. And so we feel good about the gums being hydrated. And then also, there's actually even some research around guar being a digestive aid and helping people with digestion. And the amount that you're consuming is so small in our ice cream that it really should have no impact on you. Of course, everyone reacts differently. Like, that's not a medical claim or anything. And lastly, the reason why we use them. I think a lot of people wonder, why do you use this? And we don't use it to thicken the ice cream or to make it creamier. We use a lot of cream, and we whip a small amount of air into the ice cream. So we use more cream and less air than your average commercial ice cream brand. We use the organic gums to help prevent crystallization in the ice cream, really absorb that water content that's in ice cream. You have to think ice cream is actually around like 50 to 60% water, even more potentially, just from the naturally occurring water that's in milk and cream. And so you have all this water content that you're freezing, and as it goes through a distribution chain and freezers that we're not controlling, and freezer trucks that we're not controlling, if we're a premium price product, I didn't want to have it then, or I wanted to try to minimize the risk of it crystallizing and someone buys it and has a unpleasant experience. And that's always going to be a potential thing with ice cream, where it melts on a freezer shelf or in a warehouse for a distributor, and it gets refrozen and someone has an icy freezer burnt pint. Like, that's an unfortunate reality of selling ice cream across the country. But we wanted to try to prevent that as much as possible. It's been really interesting seeing this conversation around gums start to build more and more. And like, at the end of the day, we're not out here trying to like fight the fight in for gums. It's something that we feel good about using, but it's also something that, as people maybe are wanting products without it, it's something that we need to consider. And how can we create the best possible ice cream that delivers what people are looking for? Because that's our job at the end of the day, is to create an amazing product that satisfies what people are looking for.
That's an amazing answer. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So it sounds like there's a bit of a trade-off there between like adding some gums and the inevitable outcome of having some like ice in the ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's not like if you don't use gums, you're going to have icy ice cream. There are brands that don't use gums, and their ice cream, oftentimes will taste totally normal. But your percent like chance of it occurring increases if you're not using gums. And so that's the trade-off. Like, sometimes I'll get customer emails and be like, I buy this brand and I've never had an icy pint. And like, so it works for them. It's like, well, yeah, that you've never had that experience, but other people have had that experience. So that's the challenge and the trade-off of it.
It's fascinating. There must be a ton of choices and trade-offs that you have to make, especially when formulating different new flavors.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's everything from what ingredients are available, and do they meet our ingredient standards, and can we even manufacture a flavor that is that idea or whatever? Just, is there a commercially available with enough quantity of that type of ingredient that's organic and maybe regenerative, clean label, and all of that. And then you have costs and ease of use, and there's so many trade-offs that you have to make, especially when you're putting something out in stores across the country, and you invest so much into all of these flavors in time and energy and effort and money, and then hopefully it works. Not every flavor works, and it's often the ones that your team and company love the most is the one that for some reason like doesn't work. But yeah, it's a big challenge to create ice cream flavors, ones that stand out and really drive sales.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, you go to the ice cream section of a grocery store and there's like 50, 60 different flavor options and brand options. It's a little overwhelming. It makes me feel like I'm in some strange dream. Just going to any grocery store is a little bit overwhelming. And then the ice cream section, I almost always find myself standing in the ice cream section, just like looking at the ice cream every time I go in a grocery store.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, is like you just have so much choice and so many flavors out there, and something that appeals to everyone. And so what we're trying to do is, how do we think about flavors that fill a gap in the territory, in the category? What are the flavor territories that, like, I think a great example is our Palm Springs banana chocolate date shake. It's like, okay, there's nothing like that in the ice cream section. What can we do that aligns with our values and feels aligned with the brand, and create an amazing tasting product that also just brings something completely new to the freezer door, and create a new flavor experience that people may not have tried.
I have a question's coming to mind, and I'm curious about this because you are the founder of a brand. If there was a population of people that were wanting to campaign for a change in the ice cream and were wanting to sign a petition, how many signatures on a petition would you be expecting to actually make the change? Like, if this was something that people were really adamant about.
Like, if people are coming to me and saying, like, hey, Alec, do something about this.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think it would depend on. I think it would depend on the impact of what they're asking for, and so, like, we get a lot of flavor requests, a lot of flavor requests, and that, to me, is, I mean, it's a high impact for the business if we can make an amazing flavor, but I think low impact on the world. But if there were a bunch of people coming to me asking, like, hey, can you find a regenerative this or that, or like create something that I'm looking for, that can solve a nutritional need or something like that, I think that's the things that I look at as really interesting, is like, oh, okay, like there's an opportunity there to make an impact, either for customers, just experience with, like, oh, okay, I can now buy this type of product, or like, here's a new product that fits what I'm looking for, or a supply chain sustainability impact.
Say, for example, the people who are really against gums, like what would be how many signatures would you want to actually change it?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have a number. I think, like, it's really about figuring out, like, what people are looking for. And I think when you start to get into the, like, 20s and 50s and hundreds of people reaching out about something, there's probably a lot more people who are less vocal, maybe care a little bit less, that also would want that. And that's when you have to start paying attention to what are the customers telling you about, or telling you what they want. And then I think it's also, like, just seeing what's happening in the world. You know, what are people talking about? What are the kind of trends and the things that people are caring about? And is that something you as a brand and a company owner need to think about?
That's a great answer. Thank you for sharing your insight. And it really ties back into the reason why we connected in the first place. I asked you if you used propylene glycol in your recipes, and you do not use that. It is a petroleum-derived ingredient that can be hidden within natural flavors or just the manufacturing process of some ice creams. And some ice creams do that to make it spoonable right out of the fridge. And you do not do that, but other brands do. And there's this rising awareness that I'm observing, I'm sure you are as well, within Americas and within Americans and just people worldwide, within the context of, like, what is in my food? Because we're all kind of waking up to the fact that, like, whoa, most of the food is toxic, like not highly toxic, but, you know, slightly toxic, not the best. You know, we can do better as a species, as a civilization, with the quality of our food. And I certainly look up to the work that you're doing and admire what you've created with Alec's ice cream, because it really is tremendous. And it makes me think of, you know, what is the best possible ice cream that can be made. And you've really done it in the majority of pretty much every grocery store. This is going to be the best option in the ice cream aisle. And one flavor idea that comes to mind, and I'm not sure if you've done this, but I think it would be pretty next level, is something like a protein ice cream, just like adding maybe regenerative whey protein or something along those lines.
So we've talked about protein. You're going to see a lot of protein ice cream start to hit the freezer door, not from us, but from other brands. It's definitely feels like protein is such a big trend, and I've heard about a handful of the protein brands. The challenge with protein is texture, and you're adding so many powders into the ice cream. And so, like, for me, I don't ever want to put out a product that tastes bad. Like, I want to create a product that allows you to achieve whatever kind of nutritional goal you're looking for, or I guess eating goal, like, you know, that you're looking for, whether that's just like to eat an awesome dessert, without sacrificing taste and using the best ingredients. And so with the protein ice cream, it's for sure something that we're aware of and thinking about. And like, you know, like I said, a former athlete, I'm I've had a lot of weird protein shakes and powders and all sorts of stuff over the years, and it would be awesome for me to have a protein ice cream. And I think it's just, how do we find the right way to do it? But yeah, it's definitely something that we've talked about a good bit.
It is a challenge. Even when I'm making ice cream at home, I find that chocolate is very difficult to do, because when I add the cacao powder in, it really throws off the texture.
Yeah, you get this. It just doesn't blend as well when you're making it at home, just because with all the powders, you really need like some high powered machines to blend that powder in and like still have it show up smooth. So yeah, chocolate ice cream is always a challenge.
Yeah. What were some of the other challenging flavors that you've concocted?
Chocolate is honestly a very hard one, because, and you find this a lot with a lot of the classic ice cream flavors, is everybody has a memory of what that flavor is in their mind supposed to taste like. And so if you took 10 people or 100 people and asked them, what does chocolate ice cream taste like, or to pick out like what is the right interpretation of chocolate ice cream, you would have a lot of different answers. And so chocolate and strawberry, or strawberry crumble flavor that we just came out with, that one was really challenging too, because for the same thing, it's like, okay, there's so many everyone's had strawberry ice cream at one point in their life. And how do you create something that, you know, is representative of the classic, but also takes it in a new direction that puts the Alex ice cream stamp on strawberry ice cream? And so that was a lot of back and forth and challenges of, how do we think about what's our strawberry ice cream taste like compared to, you know, pick a brand on the shelf.
I'm glad you mentioned that one, because I was going to ask about it. It's really good. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you use real strawberries in that, don't you?
We do.
That's amazing. When I try making strawberry ice cream, there's really never much of a strawberry flavor, because I think a lot of the strawberries out there are, you know, strawberries from the grocery store are relatively flavorless. And then I get grow some out back, and I'll use those, but I still can't. I'll cook down 3 cups of strawberries and like half a cup of jam, and I still can't quite get much of a strawberry flavor.
That one of our new batch. So we just came out with 9 new flavors this year, which was just an insane R&D project. We do all of our R&D in-house, and so it's a lot of fun times eating ice cream, but also a big challenge. And that flavor, the strawberry crumble, was the hardest one for us to nail down, because to get that right amount of strawberry flavor to come through, without it being overpowering and without losing the creaminess and the creamy flavor, it was a big challenge. So yeah, strawberry's tough.
I'm curious, how did you, without giving away any trade secrets, could you describe like what was a little bit of what went on there?
Yeah. So what you're really trying to do is, and what we did is, you're adding strawberries, but then we're also, you can look at like using concentrates or maybe like an essence to help flavor the ice cream, or an extract to help flavor the ice cream. And then adding strawberry pieces, adding those in without having them get icy. It's so you're balancing all of that, and like, do you want a vanilla, like a, not vanilla, but like kind of like a sweet cream ice cream with strawberries mixed in? Do you want a strawberry ice cream with strawberries mixed in? And then we have our oat cookie pieces, our oat crumble pieces. So it's finding that right balance, and then the coloring of it as well. Everyone's always like, oh, well, when you think about strawberry ice cream, kind of just in your imagining, you imagine it to be kind of pink. But then if you're not using food coloring or anything like that, it doesn't like look like this bright pink ice cream. It's kind of like this nice, creamy, off-white pinkish color. And it's really, I think we have a really nice colored strawberry ice cream, but it's not this like vibrant pink that you get from food colorings. And so even that is something that, because so much of how people experience food is visually. And so trying to get the coloring right, the texture right, the right hints of strawberry flavor, and then also, delivering that like baked oat crumble flavor as well to complement the strawberry. So it has like a touch more of a warm strawberry flavor than like that bright, fresh strawberry ice cream that people may be used to. So those were the conversations that we were having around just that one flavor.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that behind the scene look into what goes on with creating a new flavor for an ice cream brand that's on a lot of grocery store shelves. Do you know off the top of your head how many grocery store shelves you're in?
We're in around 2,000 stores.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thanks. It's wild. I can't believe it. I mean, it still kind of blows my mind when I just am traveling in another state and see our ice cream in a store. In like some stores that I didn't even know was going to be there. I just walk and be like, oh, that's cool. So it's kind of mind blowing sometimes, honestly, to see how far the product has spread.
It's a amazing story, because you really are going top shelf, creating something that is made with regenerative dairy and super high quality ingredients, which is a pretty big risk. Like not every, a lot of times in America, the perception of food is like through the lens of cost effectiveness. But I think that there is this growing awareness around food quality, and being able to bring that to people is such a service.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I mean, if we can help change that perspective a little bit, that will be something that'll feel very satisfying to myself and the rest of the team. It's something that we talk about, and like, how can we contribute to that conversation?
On that note, maybe it's a good time to actually describe what regenerative is, for people who are listening who don't know. What separates regenerative dairy from just organic dairy?
Yeah. So regenerative, to zoom out to kind of like just regenerative agriculture in general, it's an agricultural system that utilizes a variety of practices to essentially recreate nature or mimic nature in a way, and create better environmental and ecological outcomes on the farm, as well as create better quality food and food systems. So that's a lot of words. Like, what does that actually mean in practice? So for regenerative dairy farms, it really revolves primarily around rotational grazing. And so rotational grazing is where you're essentially taking the pasture that cows are grazing on, and rather than just letting the cows sort of run free and do whatever they want to do, go eat whatever grass they want to eat, which cows, when they do that, they'll eat the grass down to the root and essentially kind of killing that grass. Rotational grazing, you're turning that pasture into a grid and moving the cows from one section of the grid each day or every other day. And what that does is it concentrates the cows. They still have plenty of room to roam around, but concentrates them into an area where they're kind of acting like a natural lawnmower. It's like, okay, we're going to clean up this area this day, and they're not able to eat down to the root. And then also they're concentrated with naturally composting the area as well, and stomping it down into the ground. And then that kind of process keeps happening around the pasture, which one allows the roots of the grass to really dig deep into the soil. You're adding a lot of concentrated organic matter into the soil through the cow's waste. And then you just keep doing that every day. And it creates better lives for the animals and the farmers. Actually ends up creating more efficiency and output for the farms as well. That's like kind of a myth, when you think about, sustainable farming, that's great, but like we need to feed the world. Well, regenerative systems actually often can output more than conventional systems. And what was I going to say? It creates more nutritious, more nutrient dense food. So the milk that the cows are producing is, can have more healthy fats and nutrients than conventional dairy. And what's awesome about regenerative agriculture is you can apply it to any farm system. So we use regenerative organic certified cane sugar. We use regenerative organic certified bananas and almonds and maple syrup and coffee. And so you can extend it into our whole food system. And it's a transition that I think is going to be really important for the world. Some of the key outcomes, to just like wrap up the summary, is one, it helps sequester carbon. So what that means is the healthy grasses and plants that are on the farmland, they're able to pull carbon out of the air through photosynthesis, store it in their roots, and the soil effectively acts as like a storage unit for that carbon. And then it retains rainwater, so that healthy soil actually catches the rainwater and brings it into the soil rather than having it run off. Creates more nutritious, nutrient-dense food, and creates more biodiversity as well. So biodiversity from tiny organic matter in the soil to, like on Alexander Family Farm, there's birds and there's other animals on our cane sugar suppliers farm. There's endangered species. They're right next to they're in Brazil, and there's tons of endangered species running around on their farmland, and they're planting trees and creating soil that has similar organic matter to actually like native forest soil. And so all these things to really repair our systems while still working within them. As people, we're not going to just stop making food. We still need to eat. But how can we create a system that works with the world that we're in, not against it?
It's a beautiful thing, and it's really such a high technology to be able to tap back into our ancient roots and into the wisdom of Mother Nature, and create food in a way that benefits all life instead of being insanely extractive through the industrial system. We can create this new regenerative system. I remember reading an article about Alexander Family Farms years ago, and the amount of organic matter they tested before and after they went regenerative just went through the roof. They're really just, the impact they were having in that land was massive. I believe the downstream effects of all that biodiversity you spoke of, where even the salmon were coming back into like a local river. It was just like that, just the life just floods to regenerative farms. I visited Apricot Lane Farms here in Southern California, which was featured in a documentary called Biggest Little Farm. If anyone is unfamiliar with regenerative agriculture and wants to learn more, that's a great documentary to watch. And the amount of life there was just, it was overwhelming. It was so vivid. The butterflies, the birds, the bees, it was just teeming with life. And it would be such an amazing transition if our nation got behind this and started making more of these in every state.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it would be a huge benefit to our system if we could start transitioning farms and companies over to embracing regenerative agriculture.
As someone who is leading this charge through the amazing gift called the ice cream, do you foresee a day when Alexander Family Farms will no longer be able to meet demand that for the ice cream, and then you'll need to find another regenerative dairy farm?
We are always in conversation with them about how are we growing as a brand, how are their products growing in sales, and on farm, and so sure, at a certain point, if we just keep growing, eventually we're going to need to be working with other farms as well. But I think the nice thing is they've set a really great standard for what types of farms and dairy we'd be looking for. But we work really closely with them, and it's not something that I don't think will be coming anytime soon. But also, you never know, and you always need to be prepared for everything. So, yeah.
It's interesting because it makes me think about how regenerative agriculture could grow, and as demand increases, you think there'd have to be more farms, coming to be.
Yeah, and we're starting to see that as farmers are seeing the opportunity as well. I mean, because the reality is, like, the current system doesn't work for a lot of farmers, and so what's really cool about this from another impact lens of what we're doing is we're essentially helping to create a market for farmers to have the confidence to convert over to regenerative agriculture, because they know, and as more brands like us and start producing regenerative branded products and certified products, okay, I can sell my dairy to Alex ice cream for more than I could sell it to, conventional brand X that just, wants feedlot dairy, doesn't really care about it. So that's a really cool thing that when I think about long-term impact we can make is our actual supply chain can help literally grow the regenerative transition and movement within our agricultural system as we create a market for more farmers to sell their regenerative dairy and other crops and products.
It's really powerful. And just to illuminate a bit of a juxtaposition, there are many who may perceive almond milk as a more environmentally friendly option to regular milk. But you just described the beautiful system through which your milk is made. And if you were to look at the system through which almond milk is made, I think a lot of people would be distraught to learn that it's coming from these really extractive industrial farms in which billions of bees are absolutely devastated trying to get these things going. Massive amounts of water is used that is not being replenished. Almond milk has got to be one of the worst things for our environment. And the milk that you're describing is absolutely beautiful for the environment. Then it creates a flourishing system. So there's a lot that I think we can do. And the fact that you're doing it with ice cream is great, because it really is needed. And it's important to drive this message home.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a saying called it's not the cow, it's the how. And there's a lot of conversation around animal agriculture and its impact on the environment. And totally fair, an industrial agricultural system is really harmful on the environment, but you can utilize cows and their place in a regenerative system to actually make a really great impact. I mean, grazing animals are one of the main pillars of an agricultural system. You need them to help be sort of nature's natural maintenance system to make sure there's no overgrowth, to help naturally compost. So they're an important part of the puzzle.
Absolutely. It's much more of a circular system that way, as opposed to a one-way system. And if your younger self, if your younger version of Alec was able to try some of your ice cream now, what do you think he would say?
I think he'd be pretty excited. I think you would like it. I don't know which flavor he would like the best. Um, the mint chocolate chip might be up there. Maybe the triple chocolate blackout cookie, but yeah, I think he'd be pretty stoked.
I'm sure he would be stoked. A lot of people are stoked to enjoy your ice cream. So I just want to say thank you for making it, and I'm grateful that you took the time to join me to create this episode as well. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate you having me on. So thank you.
Alec Jaffe, thank you.